Earthlings, misfits, millennials, and modern yogis, and beyond. This is a little bit of a different episode. I am getting interviewed by one of my students, Dani, from the podcast Caffeinated Minds. This is a longer form, so just think about this a little bit differently, like you're gabbing with your girlfriends, or boyfriends, or them friends. Different kind of episode. See if you like it. May take your whole commute to get to work to listen to this, your whole gym session to listen to this. It may span over a few days, but just pretend we're gabbing in your living room. Let's go there. All right, I'm not even gonna have an introduction. Let's slide into the interview about self-responsibility, love, mental health, all the good things. Enjoy.
My guest today is my yoga instructor / professor. She's super cool, and her name is Laura. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, but this is usually the time I start to wind down, go to sleep. I'm an early bird.
Okay, so what helps you to wind down?
Let's see. I don't know if I have any rituals, but I always, we were talking about aromatherapy, I always have something burning or some incense. That may sound really yogi, but whatever. We're talking about the yoga. And I think recently I've been doing some cedarwood, which has been really nice, but usually it's lavender, and that kind of chills me out a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love lavender. And you were talking about, you're an early bird. How early do you get up?
Well, with the whole fall back situation, I'm a little bit goofed up. But usually I would say my favorite thing to do is I don't set an alarm. I know that sounds kind of strange, because I naturally wake up before 7 and I have this really loud bird outside my window and it will sing me awake. Oh. Is that kind of like fairy tale princess?
I think so. I kind of like it though.
Me too. So
it's you're talking to all the animals like Snow White.
Totally. Okay. Yeah, I feel like when we actually take the time to listen to the world, it is gorgeous. You'll hear me say this a lot in my yoga classes. I'm like, the world is putting on a symphony for us. The birds, the wind. I don't really count cars as that, but that works too if you want, if you live in the city. But that's how I wake up in the morning. And it's usually around 6 or it's always before 7.
I love that. That's so cute.
I'm like a princess, I guess. But I'm really not. I'm like an earthy princess.
Okay. I like to, I actually go to bed with my blinds open. So I wake up with the natural light that comes in.
Yeah.
So I do that a lot too. And usually I'll set an alarm just in case, but most of the time, I'll wake up before 8 or something.
Yes.
But lately, I started working at Starbucks, and so lately I have to be at work at 5 a.m., so that's a bit much. So I'm up before the sun's even up.
Way before.
So it's okay. I actually love working that early, so I have the rest of my day to do whatever. But speaking of Starbucks, so one of the things that I like to ask my guests is what is your favorite coffee shop and what do you like to order?
Oh gosh, my favorite coffee shop. Are we talking locally?
It can be anything, anywhere.
Okay, so I'll keep it local. At Wrightsville Beach, there's the Workshop.
Oh, I've heard of that.
It's really cool. They have all these shark teeth for sale. It's cool. You should check it out. They have something it's like a lavender latte.
Ooh. Okay.
And I know that sounds really weird, but it's super good, and that's what I use to splurge. But usually I'm just black drip coffee. The bolder, the better. That's usually. But if I'm feeling a little fluffy, I'm gonna go get my lavender latte at the Workshop.
I've actually had lavender before in coffee, and it's actually pretty good. Because before I moved out here in Raleigh, my favorite coffee shop was Sola. And
right on.
Yeah, for a seasonal time during the summer, they had lavender, and it was so good. I loved it.
It's tangy.
It's so good.
Yes.
Ooh, so how long have you been doing yoga, and how long have you been teaching it?
Oh my goodness. I've been doing yoga probably not too long compared to some people. Maybe 9 years, something like that. Yoga found me during an interesting time. It found me when maybe where you were at before this or at right now, it's this self-acceptance, how to live authentically and not with the trends and not just an autopilot doing the thing and staying busy, but actually reflecting on who am I, who do I want to be, and where am I going? And do I actually like who I am? Yeah. That's when I found yoga, and that was probably about 10 years ago. How long have I been teaching? Less than half that time.
Okay.
So I would say I'm a pretty green teacher, but it's pretty much my full-time job. So I pack in a lot of hours.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of where my yoga story began.
I kind of like that. Yoga definitely helps me out a lot because I think what it does is like during your practices, you're like everything that's going on in the world is like outside.
Yes.
Like it's just you on this mat. None of that is with you. And I like that really helps me. So it's like good to separate the outside world into where you're at, and it helps you to be present like in the moment.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I feel people are constantly thinking about the future. And I think that's where people get like upset or like depressed because they're constantly thinking about the future and missing out on where they are currently at.
Yes. I feel like you're enlightened.
Yeah.
Are you levitating?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit?
Yes.
So what's really neat about yoga is it does bring you to that present moment. Mm-hmm. And I'm also a clinician on the side. My side hustle is I'm a therapist. So I'm a trained mental health person. And a lot of my sad clients, a lot of my sad students are always reminiscing about what they wish they did in the past. They should all over I should have done this, should have done that, should have dumped him, should have, all the shoulds. And that makes them really sad. And then everyone who's suffering from burnout and stress and anxiety, they are like 10 beats in front. They are stressing over things that haven't even happened yet. And that's why they're stressing out. It's like the sweet spot right in the middle where everything is actually happening, where you have the control. I feel like that's what yoga does. It brings you to that present state. You're not thinking about the past. You're not freaking out about the future, hopefully. Right. You're present. And that's why people walk out of yoga feeling so blissed out because they've been in the present for, 20, 30, 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. And we walk out of there like someone pressed a restart button on us and we feel good. But then the world hits us and then off we go to the races. That's where I feel like yoga off the mat is it's needed. You learn these tools on the mat, but it's time to do one step further and take them out into the world.
Right, exactly. It's like when you go to therapy, which I started doing that recently, and it helps me out a lot. And more people should do it. It takes a little...
Everybody.
Yes, everybody should do it. It's good for everyone. And it takes time to find that therapist who is truly for you. Like, I remember my first... therapist. I didn't like her too much. Mm-hmm. And then I was pushing it off for the longest time. And I'm so glad that I pushed myself to do that because, at this state for me at this point in my life, I'm like, how can I be the best version of myself?
Yeah.
How can I have a healthy mindset?
Yes.
How can I be good? And so she gives me homework. And it's good to act on that. Mm-hmm. And I think if people do go to therapy and stuff, they should take it with them into the real world. Because I know a lot of people who go to therapy and they're still at the same place, mm-hmm. and it's but are you taking it with you? You gotta bring that with you into the world. Otherwise, what's the point in going?
Exactly.
Other than talking, there's more into it, I guess.
And that's what's interesting, too. I feel I wonder, does the lessons resonate when you're ready? You know how sometimes there are these really deep lessons that we need to learn in life, but sometimes we just don't have the capacity for it yet.
Yeah, that's so true.
It could be something like that. I do have a lot of folks will come, they'll dump for an hour, and they'll walk out, and nothing's different. I just don't know if if they have the capacity, if they're ready. And some people like you who are enlightened and floating off the ground just take that off into the world. That is the goal. But I would say even to those people who are complaining for an hour and not taking anything with them, still go to therapy. You're not done yet. You're not even close.
Right? Go back.
Go back.
And why do you think a lot of people avoid trying to be coming in tune with who they are?
Gosh, that is a complicated question. I don't like to necessarily make blanket statements, mm-hmm. but I think something that I've observed, at least teaching at UNCW and in my own community, mm-hmm. is that in high school, y'all are trying to just blend in. You don't want to be weird and freaky and the loser and the outcast. You don't want to be that. You want to be the person that everyone likes and is accepting and all the things, right? So you're almost going with the herd of sheep and you don't want to be too different because you're going to get picked on.
Right.
And so then you go to college and then you see all these different people And I think we still have that herd-like mentality. You join a sorority, you join a fraternity, you find your tribe, you join clubs because you're trying to herd up because there's safety in numbers. And I think that we get stuck in that and we get into that autopilot and you kind of get into what's trendy around you. That could be from the way you dress, think, speak, all of it, the way you drive, the way that you think. If you think about it, this is a quote, you are the average of the most people you spend your time with. So think of like your 5 best friends or the 5 people you spend most of your time with. You are the average of them. So what kind of people are they? Are they negative? Are they, what kind of person are they? If they're motivating you, if they want change, they want that authentic living, they want to live their truth, you're going to probably like that. If they are just going with the flow, going down the stream with the herd, wearing the trendy clothes, doing the trendy thing. I mean, if you just look around campus, you can tell who the cliques are. You know, you've got some of the girls who wear the t-shirts that are like down to their thighs with their like pearl earrings. And then you've got the misfits like you with your little jean jacket and your Vans. And then you've got the yogis who are always in our yoga clothes. I do think that we need to sometimes stop and reflect, is this authentic?
Right.
Am I just going?
I think it also has to do with comparison. And a lot on social media as well.
Yeah.
There's like, and then not only just that, is like sometimes like generation wise, like you have your parents who are a lot older was like, oh, go to college, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And you know, when you go to Thanksgiving and you're surrounded by like all these people asking you questions, what are you doing here with yourself? It's a lot of pressure.
So much pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. And I'm so glad that I went to community college first before I transferred out here, because if I would have just came right in here, I probably would have failed my freshman year.
That's
I probably
really
would have
honest of you
failed.
to say.
I think I would, because like my time, I went through like a really difficult time. 2017 was a really bad year for me. And I went through something that was like really bad, and I was like, I don't want to be this person. This isn't who I am. And that's when I started like my self journey. And then this year has been a lot of like self-love and learning how to like love who I am. Because I used to, what I would do is that I would get so busy that I didn't want to hear my thoughts because like they would consume me. And now if something happens, I like take a minute and I like digest what happened. I allow myself to feel it, and then I move on. Whereas if I ignored it, it would pile up and then I would explode with all these feelings.
Yes.
And I know a lot that happens to like a lot of people.
So many.
Yeah.
So many. That's an interesting coping skill, because have you read the book Tuesdays with Morrie?
No.
Oh, okay. It's a really good book. Shout out to Mitch someone who wrote it. Anyway, Tuesdays with Morrie. It's this old guy who's dying. He's giving you life lessons. He says that if you just stuff down your emotions, you're like a hot kettle. You get hotter and hotter and hotter, and then before you know it, it's like that ring noise, and it's starting to overflow. If you turn on a faucet of your emotions and let them just flood you, and then you can walk away from that, that's how you deal with your emotions. You can just turn it on, feel that experience, let it wash over you, knowing that it is temporary. That's one thing life guarantees you is change. Let it take you over for a moment. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then it's time to say, okay, I felt that, and now I need to move on. It's such a good coping skill.
It's so good. It's so good. And it also helped me to do like a little bit of self-reflecting and be like, okay, this did happen to me, but look what it taught me.
Yeah.
Look who I am now because of that.
Yes.
And instead of like being upset with myself for thinking I put myself in that situation, I can just be and just say to myself, okay, this happened. And I don't regret it, because if it didn't happen, I wouldn't be who I am today.
Yes.
And I've like learned from it. Some people learn from what happens to them, and some people don't.
Yeah.
But I think it's always like very like impactful to analyze what you've been through and to use it to your advantage to being like a better version of yourself.
So what made you less scared to do that head on? Because I think that's really scary, what you're asking people to do, is to be like, here's this really uncomfortable thing. All right, now sit with it. So, like, what made you, and a lot of people have fear.
Right.
Of course, if you think about fear sitting in your driver's seat of your car, driving your car around, I feel like a lot of us are emotionally bypassing a lot of this stuff because we're scared.
Yeah.
So how did you conquer or kind of master or push aside your fear to confront yourself?
Honestly, I went back to God.
Yeah.
So
let's get spirituality.
Let's
go.
get spiritual.
Go.
I was raised Baptist.
Yeah.
And it was like shoved down my throat. I didn't like it. I still believed in him, but I wasn't like praying to him. I wasn't like learning about him. And then I went through something that was very hard for me. And I was just like, I can't be this person. And right after that, the next Sunday, I went back to church.
Okay.
And I went to my coworker. At the time, I worked at this restaurant, and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go to church with you," because he's been trying to get me to go, and now he's like a brother to me. Aww. Like we call each other bro and sis. Like I love him, and I've never felt God so much in my entire life. Yeah. It's like he put his hand like on my shoulder. And the worship was amazing. The people there were amazing. And I definitely found like community. So I got involved with the church. I was volunteering I started out doing every other weekend. And then I went to every weekend serving. And then I got involved with an e-group, which is kind of like a small group. And I see them like every week. And it was like a bunch of girls, and we just like talked about life. And, you know, a lot of people, some Christians or whichever like religion you put off, I don't like know if it's yours or not. But for me, I've experienced where people will be like, if you do this, you're bad, you're going to hell. Like you were told that. Whereas like at this church, I learned that even though you made those mistakes, God still loves you. Mm-hmm. And you went through, and the sermon that I heard was being stuck in loops, and I felt like that's where I was at. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, it's like in that sermon, he was talking about like, I totally just went out of my head. This is fine.
It's part of the podcast.
Oh, yeah. It's like, beep. Yes. It's okay. Yeah. So like in that sermon, basically like talking about loops and then learning that sometimes you have to go through things to know, like, to be where you are now. Like, you have to go through them to accept where you are now in order to also gain stuff that you will receive in the future. To know that, like, you can't do this alone. Like, for me, you need God to be where you are now. And, like, ever since then, I've been getting so much better. And I am okay. And it's like, I can finally look at my past and be like, that's not who I am. Mm-hmm. So that's what helps me a lot.
Spirituality, yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, some people have a sour taste in their mouth when they think about the church and religion and God and all that. I think there is some stigma behind that. So some people call it religion, some people call it spirituality. But I do believe that we are wired to believe in something higher. Now, if you don't believe that, not a big deal. Like, I'm not here to tell you right or wrong.
Oh, same.
Yeah, but I think spirituality is something to dive into. When you're going through hell, I mean, where else do you turn other than, I mean, some people believe God's a woman. Some people believe God's a guy who's up in the clouds. Some people believe that God is in nature. God isn't the grass, but God made it and all of that. I think spirituality should be fun. I don't think it should point fingers and saying you're going here if you're good and you're going here if you're bad. No. But it should be something to explore and be curious about.
Right. And it's kind of crazy because it's like, you know, I think that some people are a little hypocritical when they talk about it because like they judge other people. And it's like, no, you're supposed, like it says in the book of Matthew, like you're supposed to be accepting of everyone, to like love each other like as like who you are. And if you don't, then you're not really like God. You're supposed to be loving and accepting. Like that's how you're supposed to be. Yeah. And that's how I've always seen it. Like I'm going to do me regardless and you're going to do you and like I'm going to respect you. We might have like different opinions on certain situations, but that's with anyone.
Yes.
So,
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I think it's important to like separate those.
I do too. And again, religion has pretty baggage attached to it if you think about it. I feel like especially with people around age, I don't know, 18 to 40, they're like, I'm spiritual. You hear that a lot.
Oh, yes.
I'm spiritual. And I'm like, I'm cool with that.
Right?
I feel like we are spiritual beings. However, some people don't want to believe in it. They need something more concrete. You know, they need facts. And that's just where they're at too.
Yeah.
So just like in the Bible, in yoga, there's this idea of oneness, that we're all cut from the same cloth. We're all made from the same thing. We're all going through pain and sadness and joy, and we all experience these same things. We are one. There is oneness. So that comes respect for our humanity. And sometimes when someone's really making me mad, I'll go, I need to come back to my yoga. We are one, and I don't agree with you, and that's okay.
Yeah, I like that.
And I think that's spirituality too.
I'm so excited.
We are all one.
Right, I'm so excited to learn about that because I'm taking your yoga minor, so I'm excited to learn all about that.
We're gonna get so into it.
I'm ready for it.
So we're gonna get so into that. Yeah.
Right. I also found this quote. So, according to Jury, I think it's pronounced Jones or something. Don't quote me on that. Okay. I'm bad at pronouncing things. But with their article, Meditating Roles of Fear and Compassion from Self and Others, Self-Compassion and Perceptions of Social Support and the Relationships between Self-Criticism and Depressive Symptoms. They quoted, I quoted them. The lack of self-compassion and perceptions of social support in turn would contribute to their depressive symptoms. Therefore, self-critical people need to acknowledge their fear of receiving compassion, be compassionate with themselves, and believe others will help or support them in order to lessen or cope with depressive symptoms. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
I have a love affair with compassion.
Oh, do tell.
Well, my Instagram handle is Practice Compassion. So that's kind of my motto for life, and that's what I try to instill in my students.
Right.
Is this self-love, this self-awareness, this self-compassion. Because once you have it within yourself, you can't help but spread that to someone else. You can't help it. As soon as you start to accept yourself for who you are and know that if you mess up, you're not a mess up, you just messed up. There's a difference there.
Exactly.
If you don't have that compassion, you don't see the difference. You're a mess up rather than, I messed up today.
Yeah, it's like a muscle. You explain that in your video. I watched that. I do my homework for you.
Yes.
And you were talking about like how it's a muscle that you have to train it that way. Because, you get stuck in this mindset of always thinking these negative thoughts, and you really have to rewire your brain.
Yes.
And then it becomes so much easier for you.
Yes.
I love that.
And it's a self-talk. And when we going back to your loop story, when we catch ourselves going down that rabbit hole, that loop of like, I stink, I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough for this, I'm not pretty enough for him or her. Once we go on that loop, it's all you got to do is catch. You got to catch yourself. And then I am. Okay, maybe I did mess this up, but I'm not a mess up. I am enough right now, today.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It makes total sense because like my therapist was like, take those thoughts and give it a name. That's what she told me to do. She was like, because she's like, it's not necessarily you. It's the people that have like said that in your life to where you think that that's you saying it to yourself. So identify who that thought is and give it a name because it will be easier to get rid of it. And say, hey, I'm not bringing this person with me into this. Yes. Like, this person is setting aside, you're not with me.
Yes.
Yeah, so I thought that was really cool.
So I give that assignment to my clients when they suffer from anxiety or negative self-talk, when they're in this loop. And I tell them to name it. And I ask them just to give our listeners like something concrete that they could actually like walk away and do. And a lot of times this stuff happens when we're alone, when it's quiet, and when we're about to go to sleep. That like little voice comes in and it tells you all the reasons why you stink, why you're not good. And we get into that negative self-talk, that loop. We're not practicing compassion there. So I like to tell people to give it a name that doesn't identify with somebody. Like it's not your mom or your ex's name. Right. It's just like this random name. Mine is Brenda. So when Brenda comes to town and starts to talk in my ear, I recognize this is my anxiety. This is not me. Mm-hmm. This is Brenda. And Brenda is a pain in the butt, and I'm going to push her aside. I'm not beating up my anxiety, not beating up Brenda, but I'm asking her to leave, and I'm identifying. So I'm not my thoughts. I'm not saying all these things to myself and believing it. This is coming from somewhere else, but it's not me. It's Brenda. And when Brenda speaks, I can acknowledge her and then let her go. So next time, maybe our listeners or you feel that coming on. Sometimes your palms start to sweat or your heart rate starts to increase and you're like, oh, it's coming. It could be a panic attack, anxiety attack, or it's just stress, or it's your negative self-talk loop. Give it a name that has nothing to do with like like I said, your ex. Can't be your ex. That person you don't like. Give it a random name and then set them aside and do that over and over, and then you get faster at it.
Yeah.
And that's definitely when you build those little neuro connections in your brain, and it paves a new way.
Oh, that's awesome.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it's so cool. I feel like I would name mine Patricia.
Do you know a Patricia?
I don't.
Perfect.
And just because, like, the first thing I thought of was, like, a Vine where they're like, Patricia!
Yes!
So that's, like, the first thing that, like, came to my head, so.
Perfect. Patricia. And when she comes out to play, you're like, all right, I realize this is you, and I'm going to let you go. I'm going to do it over and over. And then it gets fast, and you're like, oh, it's Patricia, and she's gone in a second.
That's so cool.
It's just like a muscle.
I love that.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah, I also was looking at your notes in here for under the self-responsibility and love. Mm-hmm. And something I highlighted was look inside yourself rather than looking to others to find solutions to questions and problems. Because I know a lot of people, sometimes I even do this, where I will tend to go to other people before I truly sit down with it myself. Mm-hmm. So is there a way that we can improve or people can improve?
I think that you need some kind of mindfulness or awareness that when this stuff comes up, you need to know it's happening, because a lot of us are like, well, that's an uncomfortable thought, and we're so quick to get on Instagram and numb it out. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does.
So I think that we need some sort of, hey, that thought was pretty nasty, or this happened to me and I'm going through some hard stuff right now. So instead of numbing it out on the gram with your friends, I think we need that sense of something bad happened to me and need to sit with it. I kind of forgot the question. Can you start it over? Oh yeah, we have an inner guru. Got it. Sorry. I'm back on track. I kind of go off on different
it's okay.
tangents.
It happens.
What's interesting, and you'll hear me say this in class a lot, is all the answers are they're within us. They're inside of us.
They really are.
They really are. And whether you're spiritual or not and believe you're a vessel for the divine or for God to talk to you, I truly believe that we have this space within us. And I call it our soul. And I call it this holy ground within us. And I believe that it's God. I think God's a girl. But you can think God's a boy, and I love that. I think God flows through us into our holy ground, into our soul, and that's where our answers are. But we are so busy and in autopilot and numbing it out that we can't hear it.
Right.
We can't engage because we need to go to the next class, and you're hungry, and now you need to pee, and now you need to check your feed. Do you see where I'm going with this? It's the next. So we can't connect with that inner guru or that holy place within us because we're too busy.
Right. It's you have to learn to set time aside for yourself to do self-reflecting.
Yeah, and that's hard to do.
I learned that I need that.
Yeah.
Because if I don't have when I go through work and then school and then everything else on my plate, if I don't have at least an hour to myself a day to just myself, I'm a little cranky.
Yes.
Yeah, a little cranky. It's you need that little one-on-one time with yourself away from all the distractions, even your phone, just all of it. Mm-hmm. So,
but some people will be like, I don't have the time. I don't have that time.
You can make the time.
I'm literally 3 minutes. If you don't have 3 minutes, you should probably do it for 3 hours.
Exactly.
But if it's not an hour, if it's literally 3 to 5 minutes, I feel like that's even enough for a foundation to be built. Or I'm just going to be quiet, not be on my phone, and be with myself for 3 minutes. And that's actually where I start all of you in your yoga class. I lay you in your Shavasana for 3 minutes, and then I add on every week. So, I don't know, some of us don't have an hour. I want an hour. Every hour.
I feel that.
Self-reflection junkie, but
yes.
Even if it's 5 minutes, just for that self-reflection of, God, what are you trying to say? Nature, what are you trying to say? Mother Earth, what are you trying to say? What's my body trying to say? Is it achy? Sometimes when people meditate, and I'll take them through a body scan from your head to your, down to your toes, people go, oh my gosh, I feel aches and pains in my body. And I go, that's because you're not numbing out finally. You're like putting your brain actually in your body. You're not like, I'm hungry, need to pee and go to work in 10 minutes. And you're actually just present in there. And you start to experience things in your body of openness and maybe pain too. But it's literally, it's that. So I think if you do take just a few minutes to connect with the divine, or just connect with yourself if you don't believe in that, it unveils so many truths that we've been like searching for and searching in the wrong places for. We'll search for all these inner struggles that we have in an external way. I want to feel pretty, so I'm going to go buy this dress.
Right.
This dress is going to make me look so hot and feel so good. But when I take this dress off, I'm me again. And that's, do you love yourself still?
Yeah.
And then you're going to go find your self-love with a guy or a girl. You're going to go find your self-love at the bottom of a bottle. See where I'm going? Like we're all these external things to numb and run and to help us fix what's going on the inside where it's already there, but we're seeking it in perhaps not the correct place. This is just theory, though.
What are some ways to help like engage or to like slowly start into falling in love with like who you are or like doing some self-reflecting and things like that?
Starting with practicing that compassion with yourself first. It's gotta go with yourself first, because if you're loving up on someone else but you hate yourself, it ain't gonna work, boo-boo. No.
It ain't gonna work.
No, and you can feel it. You're like, you're not even taking care of yourself. Okay, sorry. Did I get too loud? Is it red? I need to back away. Literally, it could be spending 3 to 5 minutes with yourself per day. Sometimes I'll say, what are 3 things that went right today? Well, I woke up on time. I actually brushed my hair today. And the light switch turned on when I flicked it up. So it's literally starts with those few minutes with yourself. Maybe practicing some gratitude if you need that. 3 things that went well that day. 3 things that you like about yourself. I know this sounds kind of selfish and weird, but literally, if you're like, I can't think of anything, what would your mom or dad tell you? And start there. You know how your mom and dad will be like, you're so unique, and they'll point out these weird things about you?
Yeah.
You can start there. But
true.
I literally feel like it's... Okay, I'm going to bring up more yoga. I'm sorry. There's something in yoga called Satya, Satya, and it's truth. Living your truth. And accepting yourself for exactly where you are. And a way to do that on your yoga mat is thinking, okay, I can't get into this posture yet. Or my hamstrings feel tight, so maybe not tonight or today or this year. It's literally saying, hey, not yet. Or I'm going to keep working, not being like, I suck. I can't even get into this yoga posture. Everyone else is doing it. It's, okay, maybe not yet. Maybe.
So it's like changing your perspective. It's like, I may not be good at this right now, but I know if I keep at it, I'm going to get there.
And maybe you won't, but I'm not. It's that self-love. It doesn't matter. And maybe one day you'll get there.
It's so important.
So it's Satya. It's living your truth. And the way to start doing that is either practicing on your yoga mat with that. But another thing is just, this is really hard to do, but it's living your truth even when it makes you shake in your shoes. If that makes any sense at all. Like when you go home for Thanksgiving, you know what you want to, maybe you're like, I'm really passionate about this, but I don't know how my family's going to take it. That could be with your career. That could be with what you're studying. That could be with your sexuality. That could be with who you're dating. So speaking the truth, even though it may make you feel really scared, people may turn their backs on you, but you know you're living your truth. Because if you're living this double life or living your life for your mom, dad, guardian, grandparents, you're not going to find fulfillment there. And you're going to numb and run. And you're just going to numb out. And you're just going to be in that autopilot. And you're just going to be doing the things. And you're not going to be living that authentic life. So
it's like being confident in like who you are and not being afraid to like express it.
And one step at a time.
Yeah.
It could literally be like, I love this hat, but this hat is really weird, but I'm going to wear it anyway. People maybe give me looks, but that's my first act of living my truth. You could start with that.
That's so good.
And then it like branches out, because then you realize with you living your truth, you give people permission to live theirs.
That's so impactful.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I also highlighted this right here from the notes as well. It says you have the ability to change your lifestyle and your environment. And I think that holds a lot of truth in like self-love as well, because, you know, like you say, you are who you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
Like either you change that or you change your perspective of that. So that holds like a lot of truth into that.
Before we started recording, we're talking about making a choice.
Yeah.
I'm going to choose to like myself, or I'm going to choose not to. And if I'm choosing not to, I need to figure out why.
Right.
Why? I feel like if we keep asking why and we get to the root of the issue, all the other symptoms go away. So why? Why do I not feel like enough? Why? Yeah. You can change your surroundings and your life. It's a choice, though. You either go with autopilot and keep on going and you're hunky-dory there, that's fine.
Oh, yeah.
But you make that choice.
And you also have to make that choice to love yourself.
Oh, over and over.
Over and over.
And some days it's like every hour. Some days it's every 30 minutes. And other days you're like, dang, I'm just feeling myself today.
Right? You just get in those moods. It's like, yes, I'm a bad beat. Like, I got it.
Yeah, but it starts with one day. It starts with 1 hour. I'm going to love myself even if these people I know surrounding me probably don't agree with me. I'm living my truth.
Right.
I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not being offensive, but I'm living my truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like how you also said in your challenge, the mood changer.
Yeah.
You have to like think about how you're having a conversation with your best friend, and would you tell them all the gross things about them? Like, no, you wouldn't.
No.
Yeah.
So that negative self-talk we were talking about, just in case the listeners don't know, it's when you go in that loop, or when that Brenda or that Patricia comes out and starts telling you all the nasty things. And we start to believe in that. You can think about yourself. Would your best friend tell you this stuff? Can you treat yourself like you would even an acquaintance? You probably would never tell someone those things, those negative things that you tell yourself, ever.
Right.
So you don't deserve that. Can I talk about something that is kind of wonky?
Yes. Always.
Okay, great. So there was this study done where they had water. It was 2 glasses of water. And 1 glass of water, you would tell the water, love, compassion. You would use very nice terms. The other water, you would say things like Satan and I hate you. And people would talk to these 2 water glasses. What they would do is they took a drop from each water glass and they froze it and put it under a microscope. The ones that you spoke love and compassion to made these beautiful crystals. They were these just, you would look at it, it looked like a snowflake. And then you looked at the other one where you would say things like rage and I hate you and you're a fool. And they just looked like you splattered the wall with paint.
That's crazy.
And that's just words, and that's water. And if you think about our bodies, we're like half water. So imagine you're saying this stuff to you, your water, your insides change. Does that put it in kind of perspective? Like, we are poisoning ourselves.
It makes so much sense, though.
It's poison.
It is poison, because I remember, like, ever since I started to being, like, nicer to myself, I feel so much lighter.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't have, like, a burden weighing down on my shoulders. Yeah. And it's crazy, like, how much that can, like, impact your body.
Freedom.
That's so crazy.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah, we feel liberated once we actually start to love each other and love ourselves. It sounds so like cliche, but I'm like, it works. It totally works.
It really does.
I promise.
So I wrote down some quotes, just inspiring quotes for people who are listening and may be struggling through things like this. One is from Gandhi. Happiness is when what you think and what you say and what you do are in harmony.
Yeah.
I think that's so true.
Yeah.
It holds a lot of truth to it.
So if you're loving and holding yourself in compassion, you can hold others in that, and they feel that.
Yeah.
They feel that, and like I said, gives them permission to do the same.
It's like, guys, just spread the love. There's too much hate going out there, like, already. Why you gotta make it worse?
Yeah, let's just spread that love. I'm cool with that.
New modern hippies. Let's go.
It's fine.
I like to think of myself as a hippie sometimes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think this name is pronounced Lucille Ball. We're gonna go with that.
Lucille Ball?
Lucille Ball. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you for that.
Of course.
And her quote, is it a girl?
It's a girl. She's like a comedian.
Ooh.
Comedian. Sorry, y'all, it's late for me.
It's okay. Comedian. So I quoted something from her, and she said, "Love yourself first, and everything else falls in line. You really have to love yourself to get anything done in this world." And that's so true.
It starts with you.
Right? Because I feel like if you don't, you get stuck. And, like, you know, where you see in these movies where people are depressed in, like, those cubicles.
Yes.
That's how I think, like, people get. Because, like, they are impacted by the world and they bring their work home and they're like just stuck in that zone. And I have to remind my dad, I'm like, your work stays at work. Don't bring it home. Like, I can feel your negative energy. Like, leave it there.
Your water's changing. I can feel you're making my water change.
Yeah, it's like, don't do that. Like, excuse you. Because you're just going to miss out on everything that's around you. So lately, I've been the one who's been, like, giving my dad, like, positive feedback. I'm like, he'll complain about something. I'm like, but look at this. Look how far you've come in your career.
Yeah.
Like, what you've, like, a lot of people take for granted what they used to want, they currently have, but they don't, like, take it in what they have because they're looking into something that they want in the future.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's like they have it, but now that they have it, they're kind of bored, so they're looking for something else.
They're grasping onto external things to make them fix the inside.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like this is just like one big circle, but it's a beautiful circle.
Circle of life.
Kind of. And you know, I think about your dad, and I mean, I think about this in my life as well, but when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And that could be in your daughter, that can be, that could be your dog.
Oh my God, I love my dog. My dog is so cute. Oh, for real though.
For real.
So
you showed me a picture, for real.
Precious bean. Are there any last comments or advice for anyone currently struggling with loving who they are or going through difficult times?
Gosh, I have so much to give, but I'm going to try to keep it concise.
Okay.
I think we need to keep coming back to starting with yourself. Mm-hmm. And even though you're different and you feel like a misfit or a nonconformist, I think it needs to start with you. And if you're struggling with that self-love, sometimes I don't think it's enough to talk to your bestie about it. Like, she or he or they can help you as much as they can, but sometimes you need to dive in deeper. And usually this lack of self-love is just a symptom of a deeper problem. Mm. I don't think it's like, I just don't love myself. It's like, nope, something deeper happened. Does that make sense? It's like slapping a Band-Aid if you're doing all this self-work, but you're not getting to the root of the issue. And I think that can be a really scary place to be. So if you do it with a professional, that would probably be ideal. It could be a life coach, mental health coach, counselor, therapist, someone here at school. But usually that's just a side effect. It's like you're smoking and you got lung cancer. It's like, okay, you have lung cancer because you're smoking.
Right.
So that's why I'm like, let's go to the root.
Do you think it has to be with, like, blaming yourself for, like, the things that you go through in life?
I think it could be blame, shame, bad. It's people who have fed you lies and now you believe it. It could be trauma. It could be a neglectful parent. Maybe you're a child of an abusive parent with alcohol abuse or something else. So I feel like what happened to us when we were growing up really shapes who we are. Right. And we can either let it shape us the way it is, or we can go back into some of those scary thoughts and hash them out and then come out of it stronger, better, and with some understanding. So if you're freaking out, you're just like, I really just don't like who I am. Mm-hmm. I think that's just a symptom of a deeper problem. And I don't necessarily think your bestie is going to uncover that for you. So that's why I'm like, sometimes you got to talk to someone. If this is a common issue, this is really a common issue. If you have dealt with this for years and years and years, something that you could start to think about is, when did I start feeling like this? What age? Where was I? What was happening in my life? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally
like,
sense.
When did the self-love, because as kids, we love ourselves. Look at a kid. They run without abandon. Like, they are not afraid to try new things. And then something shifts. Was it a bully? Was it a guy or girl? Was it a parent? Was it a divorce? Was it a death or grieving over someone?
Right.
What happened? What shaped you? Because something happened. And now all of these other side effects are happening. Self-doubt, feeling I'm not enough, having body image issues, feeling really scared to actually speak your opinion. I feel like that all are just side effects.
Yeah.
So if you want to think back, I love journaling. Mm-hmm. Maybe if you got a good bestie who will listen to you and not interrupt, you could discuss it and hash it out with them. But journaling, if you don't have those other resources to talk to someone, could be a way. What happened in my life? What happened where I made this mental shift? And if you don't know, that's why you just revisit it. And you keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's the 3 to 5 minutes you spend with yourself. Wow. Then maybe 3 to 5 turns into 7 or 8. Mm-hmm. Maybe for around 10. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense, because my first therapy session, we did a timeline. And and then she kind of circled the pinpoint of
there you go,
where shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Yeah, so she definitely used that, and it helped to pinpoint when it started.
Yes.
Yeah.
What was going on, the why. Sometimes when the truth is revealed of the why, it's liberating. You're like, now I can do something about it. Now I get the why, and now I can come back to that why. This is happening because of this. Okay, not true, not good coping mechanism. Let's try something else. Right. It's the why. So how did she walk you through the timeline? Do you remember? Maybe the listeners could try it? Do you remember?
Yeah, so she kind of started out by going, so are your parents married or divorced?
Okay.
Did they get remarried? Do you have any do you have any siblings? And then from there, she went in more depth with it.
Yes.
Asking more questions, and she would say, do you remember at what age you started to feel this way? And I pinpointed down to the age of 14.
Okay.
So 14 is kind of roughly where it started for me.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
but that's so enlightening. It helps you so much. And if the people who are out there, you listeners in cyberspace, if they're stressed out in general, so I'll pivot and give them my best stress tips of maybe why they're stressed. If you think back to the first time you ever felt the emotion of stress, if you go back and you're the first time I felt stress was, and you fill in your blank. And then my next question is, what did you do right after? Because that's probably how you're responding still. So here's an example. The first time I felt stress was when my parents were going through some financial stuff. And I was like, oh, stress, that's not a good feeling. And what I did is I threw on my shoes and I ran outside and I played in the forest. So now when I feel stressed, the first thing I do is I put on my sneakers and I go for a run. I'm still dealing with it in the same way. However, sometimes it's I punched a hole through a wall, or I went and kicked someone, or sometimes it's not a great coping mechanism, and sometimes it is. But when's the first time you felt stress? And what did you do right after? And are you still doing that? Is it helpful, or is it not? Find a new coping mechanism that is.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That's it. Mic drop.
Drop the mic. Well, those who are listening, just know, if you ever need to talk to someone, please find a therapist. Yes. People degrade it so much, but it's so helpful. Everyone needs it. And it doesn't even have to be for a long time period. Mine's just for one semester, mm-hmm. but it's already helped me so much. So don't be afraid to reach out at all. Everyone goes through things, and truly learn to fall in love with who you are. Get to know yourself. Set a few minutes every day just to learn something new about yourself, or to try a new hobby just to see if you like it or not. And thank you for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
And if you want to learn how to love yourself more, I have a podcast too called the Siljander Podcast. and I go into this incredibly deep, layer by layer. That's all.
Shout out to you.
Shout out to me. Shout out to myself, because I love myself.
Oh, hell yeah. All right, bye guys.
Bye.
Stay caffeinated.
All right, modern yogis, misfits, and earthlings, I hope you enjoyed this interview by the Caffeinated Minds with the Siljander podcast, connected as one. Yeah. If you want a little bit more love and support and community, follow me on Instagram at practice_compassion or check out my website, laurasiljander.com. That's all for now. Meow.